Next level. Next level.
What's going on, everyone? All sorts of stuff to get through this evening, so I'm going to talk a little fast and kind of get through this stuff as quickly as possible, and then we can talk. I can make some announcements, and we'll even do a little bit about some conspiracy theory type stuff that I think some of you are interested in. In any case, we've got 3 new phones that are coming out. We've got one from Sony, one from ZTE, one from HTC. Also, the FCC can now consider areas with one ISP competitive. So as long as there's one place you can go to get something, there's competition in the marketplace. I don't know. It's just like nowadays it's like they're redefining what things mean. Like definitions are just being made up now to mean whatever suits people for their own needs. Anyways, Google's physical security key is now available. Apple buys an AR-focused startup. We kind of knew that that was going to happen, and this is probably the next big thing that we can look forward to from Apple and a lot of other tech companies at this point. And the danger of brain-computer interfaces, all this and a whole bunch more stuff right after this. So as soon as I come on, Johnny says, Mike, do you have any guests tonight? I'm sorry, I don't. I know you're probably tired of hearing just me talk. I am working on it. I gotta say, it's not as easy as you might think to get everything coordinated. You know, people have commitments, people have bandwidth issues at their locations. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, but here's the good news. We do have some guests coming up in the near future. I will announce them as soon as they can confirm dates for me. In fact, I think you're going to be surprised at who's coming, and one of our viewers here will be joining me soon. I don't want to say it until we know when, exactly, so we can look forward to that, but that's definitely going to be happening. Also, we talked about having an attorney who specializes in technical or tech law, tech related litigation, and I have someone who said he's interested in coming on, so that I believe is going to be happening hopefully very soon, and a whole bunch of other stuff, because yeah, I mean, as much as you would probably like to see someone talking with me, I would like it just as much because it makes my job a lot easier. Not only that, I'm this close, I think, to getting live repairs streaming on Monday. I'm probably just going to have to buy another computer. I think that's the bottom line. Nothing I have can really handle what I need it to do. Doesn't have the resources for it. In any case, we got all sorts of people here in the chat. Let's see what's going on. Nate's Tech Services, Johnny Chang, Tech for Your Needs. What's up? Have not seen you here for a while. We've got Jerry Worley. Good to see you. Greg M. And Lil Joe's Gaming EXT. Can you fix my phone? Can somebody fix his phone? Probably. We have a whole lot of techs that show up here, and that's what a lot of us do. So if I can't fix it, hopefully someone else can. It really probably depends on your location. If you're on the other side of the world, you probably don't want to send your phone to me. But if you're in California, I mean, really, if you're anywhere in the U.S., especially on the West Coast, that's where I'm located. If not, there are a lot of competent technicians out there, so if you want to give us your location, we can probably figure that out for you. Johnny got an excellent idea for a phone that never give gossip or untrue news. Holy smoke phone. There you go. HTC U13 Plus, isn't that a number and cross symbol a bad combination? I don't know. I guess if you're superstitious, maybe. That must be hard. I don't know. Is Harvey on there? I don't see him. Okay, so let's go through these news items real quick. I've got a whole bunch of interesting stuff. Okay, anyone near Houston, Texas, holler to Lil Joe's Gaming. I'll be happy to help you if you want to mail in your phone. If you go down to the video description, you probably won't see a link to my website just yet, but if you go to gocellphonerepair.com, there is a tab where you can ask for a quote. So if you don't have someone in your area, absolutely send it to me. I need to know what's wrong with it. That's probably the best way to do so. If you use the contact form, you can tell me what the problem is, and I can let you know, what the odds are of us being able to fix it. If it's something like a broken screen or a charge port, most likely yes. Harvey, there you are. I was wondering if you were here. I did not see you in the comments. That's why I thought you weren't with us yet. See, I can't actually see the names of the people until you guys post something in the chat. So welcome back, Harvey. All right, so real quick here is what's going on. HTC ditches digital buttons for its mid-range U12 Life. And I gotta say, here's an interesting thing. I've never been a huge HTC fan ever since they kind of started making their phones very difficult to work on, but I will say that when I had the HTC Vivid, I loved that phone. I've always thought the design on the outside of the phone looked great. I always thought the inside was kind of overdone, a lot of layers of adhesive aluminum or whatever that conductive tape is, a bunch of flex cables, antenna wires just going in random areas so that it looked like spaghetti for the most part. But on the outside, they're generally nice looking phones. Well, here's the cool thing. Now, if there was any argument for HTC, I love this. There's no notch. They just made a phone. They made the bezel slimmer at the top and the bottom. They got more screen space, and they didn't put the silly looking notch, which I know to some people is not a big deal. It's definitely not a deal breaker for me. I just don't see the necessity for it, really. I'm okay with just having those straight line across the top. Also a headphone jack, which is kind of cool. That's becoming a rarity. Not that I use mine a lot. I just don't think there's a justification for removing it right now. It's kind of like saying, well, we have electric cars now, so you don't need gasoline anymore. I mean, come on, let's not put the cart in front of the horse. Let's wait until people say, you know what, this is a waste of space. Now you can remove it. But why listen to what customers say, right? Here's the thing, though. Probably almost definitely not going to be in the US. That's what a lot of the trends that we're seeing now, if it's not made by Apple or Samsung, there's a good chance that we won't end up buying it here. But for $400 or the equivalent, it sounds like it's a pretty decent phone. I'm not going to go too much into the design here, but as far as the specs, this is what you get. A Snapdragon 636 processor, 4 gigs or 6 gigs of RAM. Okay, so it's got to be a 4 or 6. I guess there's 2 different options. Storage comes in 64 and 128 versions. You can expand with a micro SD card, 6-inch screen size, 2160 by 1080, Bluetooth 5.0, and a 3600 milliamp hour battery, which seems, I guess, about right for a phone that size. And it'll ship with Oreo 8.1. So again, if you're not in the US, this might be something that you can consider. We, again, probably won't be seeing it here. U12 rear-facing camera is a 16 megapixel primary sensor and 1 5 megapixel secondary. F2.0 aperture, along with phase detection autofocus, an LED flash, and 4K video recording. And one of the positives that they state here is that they have ditched their, what do they call this again? Their digital buttons, which apparently was a good move, and that was a big deal for some people. Broken on the bottom right screen of the corner and is looking more worse. It starts to crack more and more top of my phone. Okay, so what kind of phone do you have? Because if it's a Galaxy phone and it's the display, it's probably, it may surprise you how much they cost. They're a little bit little more expensive than LCD screens, for example. As long as it's not a super new version, it probably won't be too bad. But that's usually the thing about it. Hey, what's going on, Oscar? Good to see you. Actually fixing a Samsung right now. Awesome. Oscar Zarza recently took the phone repair training with me out here in Antioch, and he is in Woodland. So if you're in the Woodland area, there's another place that you can go to get your phone repaired. Let's move real quick through these. We have Sony, which I've always expected a lot from. You know, Sony has been around for a long time. They've always made reliable electronics for the most part. They have become very popular until they kind of did some weird stuff in the gaming arena. But they do have a big curved OLED display, which is probably the worst thing about this phone, at least in my opinion and according to the comments here. I mean, it looks like a cool phone. It's a little tall if you ask me. This is all subjective, of course. I don't like a phone that looks like a lightsaber. You know, I kind of like the old aspect ratio, and it's like they're getting longer and longer and longer. Like, how tall do you want your phone to be? I think this would be the limit for me. This is just me speaking personally. As far as specs go, we're looking at 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage expandable via micro SD, which is awesome. And this is something that I was kind of thinking about today when we are, you know, often comparing iOS or Apple products in general. This can extend into OS X or Mac OS or whatever you like to call it. When we talk about hardware and operating systems, you know, something occurred to me. When you buy an Apple product, the idea is that you buy it and you keep it for a long time and you're happy with what you get, and that's it, because there's nothing in the way of upgrades. You don't add RAM, you don't add storage. All you really do is upgrade the operating system, so the software can be changed, but nothing else inside of the phone as far as the hardware. And that's true for most phones, with the exception of expandable storage. You know, that's kind of one of the positives, I think, when we look at how people are using more multimedia and storing more things on their phone. It's nice to be able to expand more storage, and that's you know, not something you're going to get with a lot of brands anymore, and especially not Apple. That's just the way it is, so get used to it, right? So what do we have here? Main camera, mostly transferred over from the previous model, consists of a 19 megapixel f2.0, 25 millimeter, 1.3 inch. What? I don't even understand what that means. 960 frames per second, 1080p slow motion capture, and a real-time 4K HDR recording. Let's see, what else do we have here? Like I said, it looks like a cool phone. I don't know how soon we'll be seeing this in the US. I didn't see any announcements as far as the release date here. Could be out tomorrow for all I know. I'm not sure about that. But again, we're going with the curved edges on this thing, and that, you know, if you want to repair phones, occasionally will complicate things depending on what you're working with. I thought it was ironic that there was a comment down here at the bottom by a Mate 10 user that says, OLED display, yes. Curved display, no thanks. Please stop using curved displays that are super fragile. They often break with one drop and have lots of annoying glares to the edges, and this is a great point to make about curved displays. Now, if you like those, if that's your thing, awesome, good for you. But I have to agree, you know, outside of repair, I don't see the huge benefit of having a curved display. You know, maybe if you want to look at your phone while it's on the table and be able to see some kind of message scrolling across or something, but realistically, does that happen very often? Maybe. Personally, I can live without it, and I think that this raises a good point. When you have a curved display, you increase the chances of the phone breaking, and you're creating that line of glare on both sides, because at any point, there's going to be light hitting that thing and reflecting, and you're going to see that big line there. So I don't know why everybody... I think it's one of those things where we can do something different, so we better do it, because, you know, we can't make the battery any better, and we can't make phones do the things that customers are asking them to, so we'll make them do other things and then tell you this is what you need to have. At least that's the way I'm looking at it. Thank you, Harvey, for posting the link. Yes, if you need to get your phone fixed and you don't have someone in your area, which I'm happy to fix phones, and I'm happy to refer you to people if I know someone there. I'm trying to think about Texas right now. I had some guys that did training way back when about 2013 that I trained phone repair, so I could always reach out to them and see if they're around. Otherwise, you're welcome to send it in. By digital button is the one that shows the bottom bezel of any regular phone. You know, Johnny, I'm not sure what they're referring to exactly right there. That was my question. I don't remember any HTC that I used, you know, as far as digital buttons sticking out in my mind. So I'm not sure exactly what they're referencing there. Curved displays are just imitating the trend set by LG's ultra-wide TV sets. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, they're here. I don't think anyone outside the manufacturers are super excited about them. But certainly if you're trying to refurbish screens, this makes things much more difficult as far as separating the display from the glass itself. So maybe that was the idea, is that they don't want people refurbishing screens and reselling them, and they'd rather have you buy a brand new one. I don't know. In any case, also ZTE, who, again, we probably won't see in the US, new flagship Axon 9 Pro. And of course, it has a notch. Big shocker there. What else are we looking at? A Snapdragon 845 processor, 6.21-inch AMOLED display with 18.79 aspect ratio, 4,000 milliamp battery. Sounds good. So here we go again. This is something that ZTE has done well for a long time, is they make an affordable phone with a big display and a decent sized battery. And then they, for all practical purposes, get kicked out of the US, so we probably won't see it. 12 megapixel and 20 megapixel camera sensors on the back, and a 20 megapixel selfie camera on the front. And this is another thing that I would assume is going to be very popular, and that is having a high resolution front facing camera, because of the popularity of selfies, or what do they call them in Europe? They have another term for it. It's like, I can't remember what it is, what they call it, but there's a completely different term for that. Real World said digital, hey Real World, I did not know you were here either. Digital buttons, as in the U12 has buttons on the side that don't click like the iPhone 7 home button. Oh, okay, I got you. So does it have that, what do you call it, haptic or taptic feedback thing, where when you press it, the phone vibrates? Because that, I think, is funny. I think that it's interesting that they were so concerned with getting that thing built into the phone that they sacrificed the headphone jack, and who knows how much it cost to develop that technology. Is the Snapdragon 845 optimized for AI apps yet, or do we have to wait until the 860 series? If anyone can answer that, feel free to chime in. I don't know about that one, Johnny. Johnny's got those questions that make you think, though. Let's see. Back to the ZTE Axon 9 Pro. We have 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, Android 8.1 Oreo OS, and a USB-C connector. Like, that's a feature, apparently. So there you have it. Probably a decent phone for the price, but who knows? They may have foreign spyware in there or something. Whatever reason it is that we're being told that we shouldn't be buying this, or we shouldn't be using these phones here in the US, because everyone's spying on us, I guess. Now, this is something that I want to bring up, and I'm not going to stay on this too long. You all know, anyone who's been here for any amount of time knows that I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm going to come back to the topic towards the end of the stream. I just want to mention this because I think it's crazy, the things that are going on right now. And you never get tired of seeing this guy's face, right? So a U.S. Court of Appeals rules that the FCC can consider areas with only a single ISP competitive. I don't understand what's happening. Like, it's as if the general public says, here's what we want, and some organizations are saying, yeah, okay, too bad. You know, we don't care. Like, aren't these elected officials, aren't tax dollars funding these? I wanted to say, you know, it was bad enough that we had the FCC turn on us for all practical purposes. We have some questionable practices going on among politicians. Not that that's anything new. That's been forever, you know, since this country started in the first place, and will continue indefinitely. You know, with power comes corruption, and with absolute power comes absolute corruption, right? But we always thought that we had a system of checks and balances so that the court system could step in and say, no, you know, you can't do that. That's a little too corrupt. You've stepped over the line. We need to watch out for the good of the people, and this is not what they want. And yet we have an 8th Circuit Court of Appeals that ruled that the FCC can basically, you know, according to this article, choose which evidence to believe regarding its recent decision to allow areas with only a single ISP to be considered competitive. I don't get that. How do you say, if I have the only store in town and I'm big enough that I can prevent anyone else from starting up a competing business, that now I am offering competition? What am I going to compete with myself? I'm baffled. I don't understand what's going on here. So we all know that back in December, the FCC said that they were hacked, and it ended up not being true. And even our friend over here, this guy Pi, came out and said, yeah, I knew about it, you know, since February or something, but I wasn't allowed to tell people that it was not in fact a hack and this is all made up. And I don't know. It's hard to know who you can really trust anymore and who you can believe. But the fact that the court is saying now that if there's an ISP, and it's going to be a big ISP, chances are, right? They don't have to worry about having competitors in the market, because if there's one, then there's competition. I don't understand what this means. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. At the same time, we have ISPs apparently, allegedly, according to EFF, calling up and telling senior citizens, who we all know tend to be not always, but you know, probably a larger percentage of senior citizens haven't really grown up with technology the way that we have. And certainly I haven't grown up with technology the way that someone in their 20s has, and so forth. You know, this is kind of the way that the world works. Supposedly a company who is affiliated with, I don't want to say the name, but one of the bigger phone carriers, and it's not Verizon, has been robocalling. So, you know, these automated calls that will dial your number, and if you answer and they get you on the phone, they start giving you a message, supposedly targeting senior citizens and telling them that if we bring net neutrality back, their phone bills are going to go up by $30 a month. I mean, this is just plain and simple, what's the word I want to use? Deception? I mean, it is victimizing. There are so many, this is wrong on so many levels, but you call up senior citizens because you have a political agenda, and you threaten them, basically. You intimidate them by saying that if you don't vote the way that we want you to, you're going to have to spend more money, which is completely ridiculous. It's not like when we got rid of net neutrality, your bill didn't go down by $30. So why would it go up if we brought it back? It makes no sense. And it all has to do with the fact that there was a vote in the assembly today, I believe. I don't know what the results are, where they voted on SB 822. I hope it passed. I don't know for sure. And I hope they didn't strip it the way that they tend to do whenever there's a law that will protect people, and then they start taking little things out and adding in all sorts of loopholes and so forth. But, you know, again, according to this article, they are calling up senior citizens because they know who's who, obviously, in their database, and saying, hey, you don't want to vote for anyone that supports net neutrality, because if that comes back, your bill's going to go up by $30. Why? Why would that happen? If it wasn't before, why is it going to be now? Obviously, this is fabricated and is based on the fact that they don't want net neutrality. They want to be able to control what you have access to on the internet, basically so that you'll spend more money with them. And it's sickening. It's disgusting. I can't believe this is still happening, like, in this day and age. But then again, 2018, we're seeing a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense right now. And we thought that the internet would raise awareness and help spread good information, and there's as much questionable, if not false, stuff floating around as anything else, which reminds me of something else that I have to remember to come back to. So again, I want to get through these news items, and then I want to talk conversational-wise about some things that happen. Let's check in the comments, so I also want to keep up and make sure that I don't miss anything important. If you do ask a question or you put something in there and I miss it, please post it again. I'll definitely come back. In fact, let's get the chat on the screen as a reminder so I will remember. That gentleman, Pichet, got to be the new spokesman to Verizon. There is no competition if only exists a monopoly, right? By definition, that's what it means, right, Johnny? If there's if there's only one, it's a monopoly. That's not competition. But a court apparently has ruled otherwise, so or a judge. I don't get it. I just don't understand. I hope the Democrats take over the House this November. The swamp smells like sewage. I'm not even going to get started there, Harvey, because there's so much wrong with the entire system at this point that, you know, something definitely needs to be changed. However, it seems like every time we hear the promise of change, a lot of things stay the same. But anyways, that can be a topic in and of its own, right? These are the same people saying that a T-Mobile and Sprint merger will cause a monopoly even before the 5G talk. Yeah, here's the funny thing is the double standard with these ISPs where they say, well, we don't want net neutrality. We want to have control. You know, we don't want to be regulated as a public utility, but we do want some subsidies from the government to help us build out our system because everybody needs this because we're basically a utility. So you got to make up your mind, guys. You got to choose one way or the other. Either you're defined as a utility or you're not. And if you're not, you need to get the money yourself, and we need to have competition. It's such a it's frustrating. I'm gonna stay cool though here, somewhat. That is called Scare Scam. Hi, warning, good people. Hey, welcome to the stream. I have a question about the Google Glasses technology movement. Did that movement flatline and never take off? Is it evolving? Success, failure? Thanks. Hey, that's a good question, and I will actually come back to that again because we're going to have something here that's kind of related there. But the thing about Google Glasses, in my humble opinion, is that they aesthetically just looked wrong. You know, if you want someone to buy into something, and I say, you know, it's funny, I shouldn't say that. So if you want something to catch on, you want it to be somewhat normal, and Google Glasses were out there, right? They look like they were from a different time period. You got this big thing over here on top of the glass, and it was really obvious that you were wearing them. And I believe that was one of the problems, was design. The second problem, obviously, was that everyone could tell that you were looking at them with Google Glass, and some people reacted violently. And when you had that happening, you know, people kind of back off a little bit. And I'm confident that in the future, and then Snap tried it with their funny looking glasses, and that didn't work either. So I am confident that in the future we will have something similar to Google Glass. Google is probably working on developing something that will be more acceptable to the public. I think it's just a matter of time. You know, eventually we'll have early adopters and younger people who grew up with things like this, and it's normal for them. But in this day and age, a lot of people don't like the idea of someone getting them on camera without their consent, which in public is not against the law, but, you know, still as a courtesy, a lot of people consider it rude if you just walk up and stick a camera in their face, right? So is it still underway? Is it evolving? I believe so. Will it succeed eventually? I mean, I think it's inevitable, right? At some point in time, we will be walking around with headsets on that allow us to interact and augment our reality and access information. But when is that time going to be? Well, you know, somebody's taking a step closer pretty soon. And here's the interesting thing. I say, you know, the Google Glasses just looked goofy, and that's one of the reasons that people didn't like them, right? But then you take a look at the AirPods, and there are people wearing those. And come on, let's be honest. If you've never seen them before, you're surprised with the appearance, right? It's like, what? This is quite out of the ordinary. But if the company can convince its customers that they are the best thing out there, then the customer is going to buy whatever that company makes. And I believe that that's part of the success behind the AirPods, you know, not to mention all of Apple's other products. So if you're big enough and popular enough, you can start setting the trends. And, you know, I don't know if it'll be Google, but I think that someone will eventually develop something that is, you know, more acceptable when it comes to appearance. As far as the cameras in public thing, you know, that's always going to be an obstacle. But, you know, pretty soon we're going to have cameras everywhere. I mean, we've got quite a bit of public, at least within within metropolitan areas, covered with cameras of some sort. I think it's interesting also that people take things a lot differently. If there's a camera set up on a light post and you're at a stoplight, nobody thinks too much of it. But when someone points a camera at you, when a private party, like a person on the street, points a camera at you, people tend not to always react positively to that. So Google Glass was Google's experiment, Harvey said, to see how many people will spend lots of money to have their eyes crossed. Yeah, that and the Snapchat lens, I think, were just, I want to say ahead of their time, but I think the design was not quite there. I think eventually, in fact, we talked about this like last year. There was another company who was working on something that looked a lot cooler, you know, a lot more low profile, less obvious, but I don't know what happened with them. We don't see them out there just yet. So that said, this is the same thing. So as we were talking about ISPs not wanting to be considered utilities, not wanting to be regulated, they will apparently be getting broadband coverage for 1.7 rural Americans at, how's this going to happen? Well, it will be subsidized by about $1.5 billion in federal funds over the next 10 years. So what does that sound like to you? If something is going to be available for purchase, but it's going to be subsidized by federal funds, which means your money, okay, your tax money is going to pay for this network, and then privately owned corporations are going to use those networks to sell their product to the public. That, to me, that sounds a lot like a utility. It sounds like saying, you know, we don't have indoor plumbing or we don't have electricity in this rural area, so we need federal funds to build it out so that we can offer those services to that population. To me, that sounds a lot like a utility. That doesn't sound like something where, oh, you can take it or leave it, right? And you're using federal funds, again, tax money. I love that they should just say tax money in the article, because that's what it is. We're going to help, and I'm not opposed to it. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have access to broadband in rural areas. I'm completely in favor. Eventually, the entire country will have broadband in most areas. That's fine. But if it's going to be subsidized by tax money, how can this not be subject to regulation? That doesn't make sense to me. That, by my definition, would be a public utility. So that's when you say, let's step in and make sure that these guys are being competitive. Let's make sure that they're allowing people to use these utilities for whatever they want. Nobody comes to your house and says, well, if you want to use electricity for your lights, it's going to cost you more than if you use electricity for your garbage disposal. That's not how it works. You pay by the kilowatt hour. If someone gives you an internet connection, you pay for the amount of data that you're using, you pay for the speed that you're getting, but they can't pick and choose what you're watching. And without net neutrality, that's what they're able to do. And it's only a matter of time before that happens. So this is a weird thing to me. It's a weird day and age to live in. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of Warning Good People said, wow, it sounds like corruption. And I agree. That's a nice way of putting it. It sounds like a lot of things. Public funds to incentive private businesses doesn't sound right at all. I mean, it's obvious, right? Is it not just me? You guys are seeing this article. By the way, the links to all this information down in the video description. And of course, before I forget to mention it, because I always do, please hit the like button if you enjoy this video. It will help me tremendously, and hopefully get some people to come on here and talk to me. I'm just kidding. I have been having conversations, Johnny and everyone else. We're going to have some guests on here. It's just a matter of getting things coordinated. This was actually a bad evening because we're about to start a 3-day weekend, so a little tough to get people to commit today. But I think in a week or two we'll have that happening. And I think you're going to enjoy the program. All right, let's get to this next one. Digital? Hello. So a physical security key that keeps Google employees from getting phished is now available. And this is another thing that I think a lot of us are going to be thinking more and more about in the near future, and that is security and privacy online. Because again, if you have something stored on a cloud or on a device that connects to the internet, there is always a potential for someone to access your information. And we already know that happens. We have even voting systems that are getting hacked, all kinds of crazy stuff out there, ATMs, you name it. Well, in July, Google claimed its 85,000 employees had gone a full year without encountering any security mishaps following a mandatory requirement of using physical security keys for two-factor authentication. And again, it's ironic that this came out this week, because last week we were talking a little bit about two-factor authentication, and I think I might have mentioned it here Monday, but I was at the bank. I was actually at my bank. I just went to get change, and that's it. And it's funny because apparently now a lot of banks, when you go to get change, will ask you for your ID to verify that you have an account with them. And I don't know why. Like if I walk into a bank and I don't have an account there, they won't give me change. What? I don't know. I guess I'm assuming a lot. You know, I'm assuming that that's what they're there for. But I guess if you're not one of their customers, they're not necessarily obligated to help you with that. So when I went to get change, the teller asked me if I had an account with the bank, and I said yes. I actually have two. I have a checking and savings. And he said, "Oh, great. And then pretty soon here comes the upsell. Let me see if we can sign you up for a credit card." But first he asked me, he said, "Oh, great. How's everything going with your accounts?" And I said, everything's going well for the most part, but I am curious as to why this bank does not yet offer two-factor authentication for their online services. And he looked at me like he gave me the Tucker Carlson face, like he had no idea what I was talking about. I go, when I log into YouTube, or when I log into PayPal, or I log into anything, Amazon even, anything that has to do with a financial transaction, I have to get a text message on my phone that I enter in order to verify my identity. It's one extra layer of protection. I'm really surprised that this bank does not, that every bank doesn't have that by now. And his response was, he said, "Well, between us, I think that most banks do what they are required to do by law. And that is what they generally do." And, he nailed it. That's what it comes down to. They're going to do what they have to. Anything else beyond that is going to be either there's got to be enough customers demanding it, or threatening to leave the bank, or enough people with a lot of money invested in that bank, or somehow associated with that bank, or it's not going to happen. And I thought that was the strangest thing of all. I log into YouTube and I use two-factor authentication, and yet my bank doesn't offer that to protect the money that I have, deposited with them. It's a crazy thing. 1,000 likes, and Mike might have Ajit Pai as a guest. Oh man, I would love to have a conversation with him. I seriously would, and I would. I let him know, hey man, I'm not going to destroy you, but I have a lot of questions for you, and I'm sure that my subscribers do also. The question is, does hackers get hacked or heckled? Hopefully both. Eugene Smith, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Banks online banking apps are coded very lousy. Some banks where I live will not do any transaction with you if you don't bank with them. No change or currency breakdown. Okay, I'm gonna pull the old back in my day, because I'm so old, but I can't not remember. 20 years ago, that was never a thing. You just walked into a bank and you did what you wanted to do. For the most part, you couldn't cash a check. Here's a weird thing: you couldn't cash a check at a bank where you didn't have an account, which is understandable, because let's face it, checks are ridiculous, right? I'm going to take a piece of paper and write on it and hand it to you, and then you're going to believe that that's real. That I understand. But I happen to know someone who worked at a bank, and when I told her, I said, I went to the bank to cash your check at the same bank. So let's say it was Bank of, I don't know. I don't want to say any names. Let's say it was the Bank of San Francisco. That's where the check was from, but it was drawn on an account from another branch. So it wasn't from the same branch that I was at. That's not where the account was held. And I went to cash a check, and they said, "Oh, sorry, we can't cash a check from our bank because it wasn't from, the account's not at this branch." And I said, "Okay, well, that's fine, whatever. I'll go to my bank." And I told a friend about this, and she said, that's ridiculous. I work at a bank. You tell the bank to fax over a signature card from the other bank so they can match the signatures up, and you're done. We do it all the time. And yet this bank didn't want to help me out. And of course, when I go to my bank to cash a check, they're going to place a hold on it, whatever that means, I guess against the funds in my account, until the check clears with the other bank, which, okay, I guess that makes sense. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about checks too often anymore, unless you happen to be in the grocery store standing behind the wrong person and they want to, the lines aren't long enough already. So go ahead and write a check and make sure it's from out of town. A lot of banks are not with the times. There are lots of ATMs that still use Windows XP. Yeah, I heard about that. In fact, they have a tendency to get hacked apparently. If you have Ajit here, he will charge you per question category. Tech is probably $100, politics is $200, etc. You know, I really should send him an invitation. I'm sure it would go ignored, but it would be interesting to ask him to come on. What about we crowdsource the petitions for that interview to happen? Hey, that would be cool. That is what Super Chat is for. There you go. Okay, so this is kind of a good idea, I think, you know, unless you use your key, obviously, but to carry around a physical key that you use in order to verify your identity with your accounts. And now you can buy it for 50 bucks. And no, I am not affiliated with this in any way whatsoever. I don't even have a link to it. Obviously, this article does. I'm not being paid to say this. I haven't tried it myself. I don't know if I'd even like it, but it is a thing that you can now buy. And it apparently works with NFC or Bluetooth. And I'm really starting to think that now and in the near future, the more secure you can be, the better, because otherwise you might end up with your identity stolen and who knows what else. With Super Chat, YouTube keeps half the revenue. Is that it? I don't know. I'm going to trust you. I didn't know that. I didn't think that they kept that much, but I guess probably. I know they keep half of AdSense. I'm not sure if that's true. I mean, I'm going to take your guys' word for it, but I didn't realize it was Super Chat. They kept 50%. I thought it was less, but either way, you use PayPal, I guess. An NFC chip for 50 bucks seems steep. I'm sure a lot of that is justified by paying for the research and development that went into creating this thing. I don't know. Maybe, you know what? I should ask Google if they will let me do a review and send me one, and we can test it and see how this thing works. Okay, so I want to get to a couple things real quick, and you had asked, who was it? Sorry guys, I'm terrible with names. Warning Good People. I think you had asked about the Google Glasses, right? So Apple has purchased a startup that focuses on lenses for AR glasses. And here's the thing, I believe, you know, whether I like it or not, I believe that if Apple does it, it is much more likely to be adopted by everyone, because, you know, once you have a certain level of success and credibility, it's like whatever you do, it can never be wrong, right? So if Apple gets into this game and starts making wearable smart glasses, AR glasses, VR glasses, something along those lines, I believe that it will work, and that people will finally go, okay, you know, now it's time to do it because I have an iPhone, therefore whatever Apple does is great, and we will probably see this on the market in the near future. Apple confirmed it acquired Longmont, a Colorado-based Aconia Holographics. That's kind of tricky to say. Apple buys smaller companies from time to time. They buy a lot of things from time to time, and then they put it in a package that people like and they sell it. They don't really invent too much, but that is beside the point. We generally don't discuss our purpose or plans, the iPhone maker said in a statement. Well, this one I think is pretty obvious. The company was founded in 2012 by a group of holography? Is it holography? I don't know. Scientists who work with holograms, apparently, and had originally focused on holographic data storage before shifting its efforts to creating displays for augmented reality glasses, according to its website. So I think that this is part of the answer to that question when it comes to VR glasses and Google Glass and things along those lines, is that, you know, yes, probably sooner than later. And if Apple does it first, then it will probably be okay for Google and everyone else to start making something similar. You know, at one point in time, I think that Android or Google could have done the same thing, but it doesn't seem like there's as much in the way of trend setting on that platform, at least at this time. So this is one of those huge things that we'll look back at and marvel on the start of, Tim Cook said in an augmented reality on a conference call with investors last year. So this is right around the corner. I mean, we've kind of known for a long time that augmented and virtual reality are the next big thing. So when's it going to happen? We don't know. 2019, 2020, probably. And Apple will almost certainly be involved in this. I mean, it only makes sense. The next thing beyond a watch that's going to be a wearable, where are you going to put it? You know, if you don't implant it into your head, it's got to be glasses that you put on and you can easily take them off. This is what I think. This is why I think we have to go to something that you wear, that's wearable, that's right in front of your face, that's easy to remove, and glasses would answer that question. So that's just what I'm thinking. Greg M, I use 2FA via Google Authenticator to get away from SIM hijacking. Good idea, because that is definitely a thing. And what is this last thing here? This is an interesting one, and I want to get into this in a second, but it is 20 till, And I love this. They have a little, hopefully I can show this without getting, I don't know, sued or whatever. But imagine if you could connect your brain to the internet, find everything you need instantaneously, and download the knowledge directly to your mind. You wouldn't need to type anything, just think and get it. Sounds great, right? Sort of. And then, of course, we have a picture of Neo, and he knows Kung Fu, and you could then learn to play the piano, and who knows what else. You know, you can learn everything almost instantaneously, maybe, once we get there. But here's the thing about it, and this is a great article. I highly recommend, if nothing else, you take the time to read it. There's no way that I can go through this entire thing. There's so much information. It's well put together. I'm going to see if I can get this person. I hope that I don't say his name wrong. Borja Moya. He is a privacy advocate, writer, author, etc. And he put together this article, and it is quite intriguing. So he talks about, you know, there's a benefit, obviously, if we can plug in, you know, to the matrix, so to speak, and have this information in our minds instantaneously, right? We can see the positive part of that. But what could possibly go wrong? What could be the problem? Because those are the things that we probably need to ask ourselves before we buy into, you know, any sort of technology, really, because, you know, there's always a way to use it for good, and there's always a way to use it for evil. And he says that brain-computer interfaces, or BCI, could enable this. And yeah, it could get really crazy. So what is happening, and what does it have to do with privacy? And then he goes back and says, you know, let's take a look at a few things historically that have happened when we are able to access information that would, you know, previously have been not as easy to access. And what he's talking about here is not us getting information from the, whatever you want to call this network, but in fact that network getting information from us, which it is already doing on a certain level, probably a lot more than we realize. So he talks about growing up in a village where he had learned a lot of history about the Spanish Civil War in 1936, where you had to be very careful about what you said, because if you weren't obedient and followed the rules, you would be killed. And we've seen this happen throughout history. And how, and you know how they would also die if you said something in public that they shouldn't have. That's something we seem to have forgotten, the value of our own privacy and the collective good. And then he gives another example here, the Vietnam War, and how the U.S. government used TV to show off the need for getting into the war. So this is starting to talk about marketing and consumerism, and how we convince the public that whatever moves it is that the nation or the government or whoever else wants to make are justified and they're a good idea. And we do that by interacting with not only by bombarding them with information, but finding out about what type of information they are interested in accessing. And this is where it gets really weird. And this is where I want to go back to remind you to think about net neutrality this entire time, because once we get to a point where a government or a corporation has control over not necessarily the amount, but the type of information that you have access to, that's when things can go real sketchy, real fast. So talking about how the mind works, and one of the questions he brings up is the 2007 financial crisis. How is it possible that they got away with it? How did they get away with the 2007 financial crisis? We know what happened. If you haven't seen The Big Short, I encourage you, go and see that movie, rent it or download or stream it or whatever it is, get access to it. It's a great movie to watch. And, he says that people would respond by saying the way that they got away with that at the time was they've got money. They can do it, right? The banks have the money. They can do whatever they want. But this is what the article says. The reason they do get away with it is because they can control the communication process. And this is even more important, in my opinion, especially in light of what's happening recently with censorship and banning people and trying to control the internet and the flow of data and so forth and so on. So again, I don't want to read this entire article. I wanted to use this as an introduction so that we could talk about a couple other things, hopefully before we run out of time today. And he has some very good examples. If you want to see how this works, they have studies that they've performed to see how people make their choices. make their decisions based on the information available to them, which obviously, this is the thing. If you don't have access to the information, you're not seeing the whole picture. That's why censorship and being able to control that information is such a scary thing. It's happened before, and it could actually happen today. That's the craziness about it. Is there such a thing as free will? I don't want to dig into that one, but Sam Harris has some very intriguing thoughts about this. I also listen to a lot of podcasts that he talks about this stuff, and they have a study here where they set up a box. This is actually a Google study where they had people click on these buttons, and they got to the point where they could determine when they were going to click on the button, and they made the button light up at the right time. And the whole thing was phony, but they were able to predict the test participants' behavior based on a very short sample of how they reacted in the first place. So in other words, you give someone information, you see how they respond to it, and you can predict what they're going to do next based on what you feed them. And this is a very simplified way of looking at it, but you can kind of hopefully see where I'm going here with this. Again, I do encourage you to read the article. They talk about digital footprints and how that data is important. And this is something I'm going to get to. I want to blow you guys' mind, hopefully the way that my mind was blown when this happened, in just a second here. So this is from Jerry Kaplan, a professor at Stanford, and in his documentary, Do You Trust This Computer? He says people don't realize they are constantly being negotiated with by machines. This is happening in the here and now. Whether that's the price of products in your Amazon cart, whether you can get on a particular flight, whether you can reserve a room at a particular hotel, what you're experiencing are machine learning algorithms that determine that a person like you is willing to pay 2 cents more, and it's changing the price. Think about that for a second. A computer looks at millions of people simultaneously for very subtle patterns. You can take seemingly innocent digital footprints, such as someone's playlist on Spotify or stuff they bought on Amazon, and then use algorithms to translate this into a very detailed and accurate, intimate profile. And this is again, going back to last year, when they passed the law that said that your ISP can collect all of the data for your web history and sell it to advertisers. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And it's so subtle that most people don't even realize that it's happening. And I'm going to say here in a second, I am guilty of the knee-jerk reaction, and I'll get to that in a second also. Most people just think in terms of ads and the fact that companies want you to spend more money. But this information has other uses too. And then he talks about where he deleted his Facebook. People thought he was being too drastic. How can Facebook be dangerous? Well, now we kind of know. But what we're discovering the hard way is that the digital footprints you leave on social media, the filter bubbles, and the greed of corporations and governments can have impact on you, on your society, you're not even aware of. An impact we can't even imagine. In the end, social media and other platforms have turned into a tool that control the masses. They don't just connect the world, but control it too. Because once you have that kind of information on people, you can play with their illusion of free will and get an outcome people wouldn't accept consciously. I'm going to finish through this, and then I'll come to the comments in just a second. And then they go through, this is a great article. Again, I highly recommend that you read it, and I'm going to tell you what my reaction has been up until this point. And again, this is from the article that I'm quoting. Too often, the argument turns around and people just go with the most obvious answer. Well, if they're going to use my data, they should pay me for it. This is exactly what I said, okay? And that's actually what they'll do if regulations get tough on them. They'll do it until people see that selling their data is just a pain reliever, not a cure. So what they're saying is, yeah, most people are going to react by saying, oh, you're collecting my data, well, you should be paying me for it. But that doesn't make it okay, because you are still the product. If you see what I'm saying, if the data is still being collected, if the data is being collected free, and when you're on any sort of free platform that has advertising, and this includes Google, this includes Facebook, this includes everything that you do where you leave that digital footprint. If you're not spending money to get that product, you know what they say, you are the product. So your information is being sold. And even if they pay you for it, that doesn't justify, you know, I love this picture. That doesn't necessarily justify what's happening, although most people are going to go along with it. And, you know, what's going to stop it, I don't know. But I want to show you something. I think that was everything in this article. So again, I recommend that you go and take a look at that article when you have time. Don't have to do it now, but do it after the live stream when you have a chance. It's quite interesting, and I really want to see if I can get the author of this to come on. Now, I want to tell you something that happened to me. Let me catch up in the comments, and then I'm going to tell you something that I don't understand to this point in time, but I know that it has to do with this. Where were we? Man-machine interface. You are connected to a coffee maker. Hey, now that's something I could get with. Wayne Taylor, how's it going, man? How are you? Today's EULA for social networks have come with a line warning about the potential for idiotic screw-ups written in big, bold characters. Another thing I still have yet to see the scientists to accomplish is to use AI emulate human defective behaviors such as addictions and dumb decision-making. Well, yeah, good point. People are not exempt of herd behavior so common with all other sentient living beings. When you set the snowball rolling, then you're setting the trend for the avalanche. Yes, absolutely. And this is why when we have these echo chambers nowadays, especially when you have Facebook and Google and all sorts of other advertising companies who target you based on your history. So if you say, I like to read articles about this, you'll notice that your feed starts to give you more of that information. So whether it's true or not, whether it's accurate or not, your ideas are going to be reinforced. You know, the first thing that you read, if you start reading more and more and more of that, and I see this in my news feed, it keeps sending me the same stuff, and I want to see opposing views. You know, I want to see what everyone has to say. So what we're doing is we're creating this disparity where people are, you know, you're on team A or team B, and we're always fighting with each other. And what is that? That's the art of war, right? Divide and conquer. Same, Wayne. Well, good, man. I'm glad you're still with us. I hope that everything is going well for you and you're enjoying your Sanka instant coffee, because it is morning over there right now, isn't it? So a while back, I want to say 9 months, maybe a year ago, I started reading and watching videos, reading about and listening to podcasts and streaming documentaries about Scientology. And I thought it was fascinating because I never really knew what it was about, what they were talking about. I just, you know, I kind of lumped it into that whole cult thing and said, you know, they did their thing. People believe what they want. That's, you know, that's what this country is all about, right? You can believe what you want, do whatever you want. That's your thing, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. But I started hearing about that actress that came out. Gosh, I can't remember her name at the moment. She was saying, you know, how bad it was and the terrible things that were going on behind the scenes that nobody talked about in public. And I said, wow, that's kind of weird, right? The Scientology thing is a little kooky. And I remember seeing some book covers and things and hearing the guy's name, and I read some stuff, and I was like, yeah, I don't remember ever making an impact on me. I don't think I ever met anyone who was a Scientologist, but I remember Tom Cruise talking about it and seeing L. Ron Hubbard books and all stuff. Okay, but I never met anyone that I can remember in my entire life that knows anything about me that has to do with Scientology. But I was listening to these podcasts, watching this stuff on Netflix, and reading things online about it. And you want to know something weird? I get a package probably, I don't know, a month later at the most, 3 weeks to a month after I started digging into all this stuff and just researching and reading about it. I get this package in the mail with my home address delivered by the post office. You know what it was? This came to my house. This is the free copy, I guess, that they give out to kind of recruit people or whatever. How did this get to me? I have no idea. But they sent me this book, this Dianetics thing, which is whatever. You know, I kind of read through it just to see what it was about. It's not the whole thing. It's only part of it. So I guess it's to upsell you. You know, you buy the whole thing. But what are the odds of this being a coincidence that suddenly, you know, in 50 years, for the first time, someone sends me a book about Scientology, knows where I live, And coincidentally, for about the past 30 days, previous 30 days to that, I started reading and Googling and streaming things on Netflix that had to do with that topic. You know, it's weird enough that those two things happened one right after the other, but what's even weirder to me is they sent it to my house. And I have only lived here for, I don't know, about 3 years maybe. So I think it's more than coincidence, and I don't consider myself a conspiracy theory, but I have a theory, and maybe it's a conspiracy theory, but I suspect strongly that not only Scientology, the Scientology organization, but a lot of other, if you want to call them private, because they're actually a tax-exempt organization, religion, if you will, have access to this information about where you are, like, and what you're watching. Like, they would have, what are the odds that they just randomly sent this book out the same time that I'm reading and watching all this stuff about Scientology? It doesn't add up to me. So I strongly suspect that when this law went into effect, it said that your ISP can sell your information to whoever wants to buy it. Someone did. They saw that I was interested in this, and they sent me a book. And I think it's funny. I mean, I'm amused by it. I don't feel threatened, but it's a little weird, and it's slightly unsettling to know that anyone can say, hey, I see this person watching the show, where do they live? And they put my name on it. It wasn't like it was sent to resident. It was sent to me with my full name at my address. I can't explain it. It's a weird thing. Did you hear the promo photo for the new iPhone and Apple Watch? Just leaked. I didn't, John. Tell us about it. You have the same name as Paranoid. You have to be the same as Paranoid as the John Malkovich character in the Red movie. Maybe I am. I don't know. But it's just weird. What else? What am I going to get next? Maybe a disc. Oh, hi, John. Sorry, I'm reading the comments backwards. I thought I said hi already, but hi if I didn't already. A disgruntled neighbor subscribed you to the cult. That's possible. I mean, maybe somebody got a hold of a piece of mail. They had my name and address on it and said, here, put this guy on the list. Or I'm probably on, I'm sure I'm on tons of marketing email lists now. But the timing was just a bit strange, if you ask me. Let's see. Just another reason to create multiple identities, if I don't already have them, right? Or to become a multiple identity. I don't know. Positive feedback is not always the truth. What? Let's see. Also, your smart TV set can spy on you because it's connected to the internet, and I'm sure that it does. And my concern is not that Netflix sees what I'm watching and puts more stuff in my feed and does a terrible job with it. You know, I'm okay with that. They see what I like watching, and then they suggest a bunch of stuff that I don't enjoy. Whatever. That's their service, and I subscribe to it. And the fact that they don't have a rating system anymore, it's either like or dislike, okay, that's kind of silly, but whatever, that's their thing. But if they take that information and they sell it to a third party, that's where I become concerned. Because if you want to know everything and anything about a person and be able to influence their behavior, all you need to know is what they're doing now, what they're interested in, what they believe in, and you can design your advertising and you can design everything that you disseminate to that person or that group of people in order to steer their beliefs in a certain predetermined direction. And that is my concern, especially when we get to the point where, again, a private corporation or a government can control what information you have access to. That's the extreme, you know, that's where it could end up going. And that should be a cause for concern for everyone, I think. Come on, Mike, you know the real reason you got the book. No, I don't. Please tell me, because I'm crazy. It's your uncanny resemblance to Tom Cruise, but you know, back in high school, sort of, a little bit. But maybe so. I don't know what's going on with this, but it's a trippy book. If you haven't read it, and if you haven't seen the documentaries about this, my understanding is that Scientology actually has their own channel now, which I think is interesting. Real quick, I'm going to wrap it up here in a second. Again, I always end up running very low on time. Send me some free comedy tickets then, because it's pretty much all I watch on Netflix. What? The Apple Watch looks the same. The digital crown isn't red. There is a small ring on it, and the color leaked is shiny gold. Same with the new iPhone. It's not real gold. I assume it is colored silver. Netflix got to recoup the revenue from somewhere else. It's the cheapest content subscription, even more than YouTube. So yeah, so the last I'd heard was that the new Apple Watch had a bigger screen, and it's probably not going to be something I'm going to want to repair, because after the first generation, it was kind of like, yeah, you can go to Apple for what, 150 bucks, 200 bucks, and have them take care of it, because they are not fun to work on in my experience. So that sucks. I missed the whole show because of customers. Oh, Nate, I got into the best part at the end, so you have to go back and listen to it and hear about this thing appearing in my mailbox for no apparent reason other than the fact that I had been reading about the topic and watching Scientology videos out of curiosity after the whole what is the actress's name that came out? I can't remember. Anyways, that was a good part. Well, there's one more thing here. I also got an email recently from a website that publishes videos, and they advertise themselves, or they present themselves as the YouTube alternative, which I think is interesting because, you know, I've been talking a while about how YouTube is kind of going funny, and I love YouTube and I love publishing on YouTube, but you just never know what's going to happen. So there really should be an alternative. I think Alex Jones is from another planet, but you know, he's got a lot of crazy, weird conspiracies that are obvious, you know, in my opinion, not true, but he has exposed some things that actually are true. And any way you look at it, you know, this terrible thing that he said about the Sandy Hook event, and he's in trouble for that and everything else. But at the same time, you know, if you saw the quotation in the beginning of the video, I strongly believe that if I disagree with what you have to say, I will still fight to the death for your right to say it. And it's crazy when we start censoring people and picking and choosing who has a platform for discussion anymore. And YouTube and Twitter and Facebook are now the equivalent of the town square, where at one point in time we are supposedly constitutionally protected as far as expressing our beliefs and being able to talk out in public to people. That has all gone online now. So that's what we're doing here. So to censor someone and to shut them down if they're not threatening anyone and they're not inciting a riot or anything like that. You know, really, I think people should be able to say what's on their mind. So, you know, considering that, I go to this website and they had invited me to create a channel there, and this is the alternative to YouTube, and you'd be perfect for it. And it didn't say my name. It actually said the name of my channel. So it was pretty generic. I'm sure they sent this out to a lot of YouTube publishers, creators. And I go there and it's filled with nothing but conspiracy theorists, like extreme, like, you should not vaccinate your pets conspiracy theorists. So I thought, you know, maybe I should go there. And again, I believe I am curious about a lot of conspiracy theories, and I think a lot of them are just crazy out there. So I wonder how they would react if I went to that website and said, a lot of the people here are crazy. I don't know if they kick me off or what, but I would be interested to see what happens, because if they did, then they would be contradicting their own idea, which is to let everyone say what's on their mind. But if you go there, it's all the same stuff. Like there's no left and right. There's no this side and that side. It all seems like everyone's in the same group, which is really weird. And, you know, it's amazing how many people think that not only should you not vaccinate your children, but you shouldn't vaccinate your pets. Your pets. And then there's a veterinarian on there that says that if you have a kitten, they give them like 14 shots in a 3-month period. Now, I don't know where she lives, but that's certainly not the case anywhere I've ever been before. Anyways, I did digress a bit there, but thanks everyone for joining me. I'm going to check with the comments here in a second, and I'll be in the comments for the last few minutes. I need to log out. It is 7 o'clock. I appreciate y'all coming here. I will be back next Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will most likely do a stream on Monday, but it is a holiday, so that one's slightly up in the air. That's why I always wait till the last minute to announce these and schedule them. I know, it sucks. I'm supposed to tell everyone 48 hours in advance, and sometimes that's hard to do. But in any case, don't drink the water. It will make you gay. Alex Jones, that's the guy. But I think it was, his thing was they're making frogs gay or something like that. I don't know. He is entertaining, and again, some of his theories have been correct. Like, he has been right about things, and that's the crazy thing about it, because that gives credibility to someone, and then he starts selling, like, I don't know, all kinds of weird supplements and telling us that interdimensional beings are traveling here through cigarette smoke in order to abduct your children and eat babies and all. Dude, just stop. Come on. But it's sensationalism, right? I mean, he even said in court that what he does is an act. It's entertainment. He's trying to get clicks. That's what he does. And if that's what it is, that's fine. We certainly have enough dishonesty going on through outlets that are telling us that they are news. You know, they're saying they are legitimate news, and yet they're giving us information that is clearly false. So that's where I have a problem. You know, I think that if we have someone say this is the news, these are facts, then they should have to be able to back up those facts, and they should really be verifiable, right? If you want to just say this is my opinion piece, fine, say whatever you want. That's what free speech is all about. But if you want to say that this is true, prove it. That's all I'm saying. Harvey, that actually turned out to be true. Gay bomb was declassified. I don't trust you. You're part of the establishment. Well, you know. Are you one of those men who stares at goats as well? Never tried. Maybe. All right. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you all next time. Have a great holiday weekend. Be safe. And watch out for the other people on the road if you happen to be driving. They're the scary ones. See you next time.